We anticipate in the next 10 to 12 years, approximately 8 to 6 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians. You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the number 2 population for 400 years. You're gonna get kicked out of being number 2, you're gonna go down and become number 4. Now, common sense, even a 3rd grade education would tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were number 2, you all jumped ahead of me, but anyway, you can guess what you're gonna get when you become number 4.
President Biden, do you support reparations?
Well, I mean, since I haven't spoken on this, got a chance. Number one, the reason we're the country we are is because of immigration. We've been able to cherry pick the best from every single continent. The people who come here have determination, resilience. They are ready to stand up and work like the devil. We have 24 out of 100 children in our school today is Hispanic. The idea that we are going to walk away and not provide every opportunity for them is that not only stupid and immoral, but it's bad for America. They are the future of America.
At the very same time that America refused to give the Negro any land, through an act of Congress, our government was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that it was willing to undergird its white peasants from Europe with an economic floor. But not only did they give the land, they built land-grant colleges with government money to teach them how to farm. And this is what we are faced with. And this is the reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign, we're coming to get our check.
We are owed $104 trillion on the very low end, plus $735 billion recurring. This number does not include the cost of about 50 Black Wall Streets that were decimated, nor compound interest from 2017 when Sean D. Rochester's book, The Black Tax, was published, nor the cost of Black life, nor the cost of living increases, nor the war on drugs, nor the current day pandemic. The number I'm working with is for slavery, Jim Crow, and accrued ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage in the country our ancestors built with their lives. Good evening, family. Good evening on the West Coast. Good evening in the mountain. Good evening in the central. Good evening on the East Coast. You know exactly who it is, family. Angela Nirvana, your hostess with the mostest on the Reparationist Perspective, bringing you those freedmen, ADOCS, ADOS, B1, FBA, hot topics, and making the case for reparations, making the case for weaponizing our vote and socializing our suffering. And this evening, family, I am so thrilled and excited to have Mr. Millennial, Mr. 40 Acres and a Tesla, Mr. Kash Gaines. Oh yes, he is my guest, and I am over the moon thrilled that we are finally getting that we must pass the torch to the youth to carry this reparations over the touchdown line. These are the ones that are going to help us deliver are quadrillions that we are owed, family. Yes, we are owed quadrillions. And like I tell my people who want to fight me over the number, I am a negotiator by trade. And you never start with where you like to end. Okay? You go for the full value, family, of the debt that is owed. You negotiate from the mountaintop. Okay? You don't negotiate from the bottom. You don't take your reparations and negotiate to close an over $100 trillion egregious racial wealth gap with $12 trillion. Where they do that? How in the world? I was doing the math earlier when one of my comrades shared that the Catholic Church, who had a huge role in slavery, they showed me that the Catholic Church has agreed to give $100 million. If you divide that by 41 million, that's $2.34, somewhere thereabout. So I am not impressed by scholars or none of them that want to come up in here and think they're going to lowball this number. Don't complain to me that it can't be done. Don't complain to me that it's not palpable for white folks. None of it's palpable for white folks. Or we wouldn't be the anchor of this country's capitalism now, would we? They don't want to give us $5, but they want to sit up here and talk about giving $500,000 to criminals who come over the border illegally. And some of my comrades want to check me about demanding the quadrillions, as if that's a problem for this country who wants to use our taxes and our reparations to make everybody whole but us. Make it make sense. What's up, Tasha Washa? I see you, family. Yes, we're coming for that check. Listen, family, if you're streaming from any one of the other places, I cannot see you to acknowledge you, nor can I see you in the chat. You must be in YouTube, ScrewTube as I affectionately call it, for me to see you and acknowledge you. But do understand, we've got a guest here today that has been lighting up the nation and California with his demands for 40 acres and a Tesla. Without further ado, let me bring him up, Mr. Millennial of the movement, Mr. Kash Gaines. Stand by, family. There he is. There he is. There he is. Show your love, family. I am over the moon thrilled. Very black. That's what's up. Now, see, these are the millennials. Can you unmute your mic? I can't see.
Check.
You are.
Thank you for having me.
Astrid Mauer Evans. I see you, family. $2 and some odd cents. That's what I said, sis. The Catholic Church, they're worth $1 bazillion. I mean, if we turn in their walls paved in 100-karat gold, it total more than 100 million. I don't think we understand, Mr. Gaines, the magnitude of the atrocity that is our lineage. Before we jump in, can you please share with my audience a little bit about yourself, the things you want for them to remember? Because in a minute, everybody's going to be demanding you on their channels, and I will be able to say, I had him over here at the very humble reparationist perspective. So please tell my audience a little bit about yourself, and then tell us how in the world did you come up with the genius called 40 Acres and a Tesla?
Thank you for having me again. I love your style. I love listening to you from Clubhouse. And when I heard you call into the California Task Force as well, fire every time. And it really invigorates me as well, because I sometimes feel like our elders have forgotten that there's a fight even happening and kind of become complacent or have become disillusioned by the process and end up being, I don't know, like they don't want to fight anymore. It doesn't make any sense to me. It seems as though they feel like they never can win. So who I am, for the longest time, like I obviously knew I was a Black American on both sides, just for the context of this conversation. And I was born in Chicago and raised in California. When my dad joined the Navy and I ended up in California, I started dancing kind of as a child. And I ended up, by the time my parents divorced and I moved to Texas, I ended up meeting some young dancers as well and starting like a rudimentary crew, breakdancing. And after that, when I ended up back in California with my father, there was this youth center in East Oakland, California, where I was growing up at. And I went there over and over again to dance. And I learned about filmmaking there and ended up starting this YouTube channel called Yak Films, where, fast forward 10 years later, I was traveling to 30 countries around the world, filming street dance events and influencer videos and hosting shows about Black American culture and about our music, about our lifestyle. But as I was traveling and, Verizon, Jordan, Adidas, commercials for all different types of companies, just viral influencer clips from my own YouTube channel. But as I was traveling, I had a whole lot of very interesting conversations with people who were, I would say, of the Black diaspora. Some of the same conversations we're having on Clubhouse now about what is race and what is ethnicity, and is Black American something that's unique, or is Black something that we all share? And the more I talked about being Black, the more I felt like the Black American experience was kind of being erased and chiseled down and being shared and being undergirded by people claiming that everything came from the continent. And so I started asking the question, where do my people stand? Because in a lot of ways, I knew about Emmett Till, I knew about, affirmative action, but then I started researching and came to find out that affirmative action's biggest beneficiaries is actually white women. And that the second biggest beneficiaries is white men who identify as homosexual, right? So white men and white women are the biggest receivers of affirmative action. White women are also its biggest opponents. That stood out to me. I was like, well, it's not necessarily about education. Maybe it's just about how we spend our money. I started learning about statistics that by 2053, African-American wealth is said to be at zero, right? And I thought that maybe that has to do with how we spend our own money. Then I saw the studies about Black American households, how we disproportionately spend money on housing, barely any on entertainment at all, and clothing. How Citigroup did the study that's over 20 years, $16 trillion was lost from the American economy due to discrimination against Black Americans specifically. So the discrimination comes from outside of our own communities, and it affects America as a whole, right? And then lastly, when I heard about how much we might receive, because at first I was looking at reparations claims and it was like $2,500 a person, or the Japanese claim $20,000 a person. That seemed very inconsequential to me. And I was going to leave from direct cash payments being a part of reparations completely. But when I heard about the quadrillion figure, when I saw the number constantly go up, and the quadrillion being completely simple math that anyone can understand, is based on wages, it's based on the unskilled labor wage of the time, based on the years of America actually existing, based on a 24-hour day's pay, and based on Georgetown universities having sold 272 of our ancestors with a 6% interest rate. There's a precedent set, and we know what the word precedent is. So all that kind of laid out in front of me, and I just started asking the question, like, should I still be dancing to entertain folks? I still dance for myself, but I need to stop everything I'm doing. I need to stop playing instruments on the sinking Titanic and actually address what's going on in the room and what's going on with Black folks and our homelessness and our lack of wealth in modern day. So that's kind of the long walk to how I ended up as a reparationist.
I am just over the moon, thrilled to hear you just go. This is rich. I don't know. Are you hearing an echo?
I'll have to mute when I'm not speaking, but no, you're fine. You're fine for me.
Okay, well, I'll keep going. Family, if you hear an echo, I see you, Tanya. I see you, Astrid. I see you, Tasha Washa. And for those of you who have yet to chat who you are and where you're slinging bricks, welcome one and all. Look, Tanya says, right on, young brother. Well, I'm a Gen X, as are many of the people who I am in this fight with. Okay. And so to hear you, it just gives me like the hair is standing on my arms, because you're right. There's such a huge disconnect between us older guys and dolls and the younger ones. But see, I have skin in the game. My very amazing 17-year-old daughter named Genesis. So I am fighting for her. I am fighting for my grandkids. I am fighting for my great grandkids. I am fighting for the lineage. I'm fighting for you, Kash. And this is why you hear me show up and show out. I mean, it takes me days, sometimes weeks, to chisel down in 3 minutes my key talking points for the California AB 3121. And when you came on there, I didn't even know who you were, but I got excited because you're talking about 40 acres and a Tesla. And I'm like, that's a millennial to come up with a hashtag that ingenious. And see, we need to be getting behind people like you so that you can take the torch and lead the others in a very millennial, modern kind of way that I can't intimate, and my comrades in my peer group can't intimate. But you are the reason why I show up, Kash. I want you to know that there's quite a few of us Gen Xers, especially, and even some boomers who understand that if we don't continue to fight, it will be to the genocide of our own lineage. That listen, the boomers to me got their share of affirmative action, and they didn't put up a secure enough gate to ensure the white women, immigrants, nor LGBTQIA could co-opt our affirmative action, because right now our affirmative action is being weaponized against us to make us eat the cost of slavery. And like I said at the top of the show, listen, the math is the math. As a negotiator by trade, I don't go in negotiating for my clients at a fraction of the value of the services they've rendered. Where do they do this at? And so I saw you and I saw Mud on Be the Power. I think I saw Mud after that. I saw something from Mud. There was a video and he was doing outtakes of your time together with Be the Power, whom I love, Be the Power. But I found myself cheering because you've got a mayor's consortium that agrees with the 6.2 quadrillion, and that is on the very low end. So why would we start on the very low end? What Thomas Kramer did was his calculation is based on from the time the country was formed with a 6% compounded interest to present day. So why are we ashamed or afraid of a number on the low end? He didn't factor in Jim Crow, black codes, redlining. Okay, because the reparations me and Kash are obviously fighting for, it's not just for slavery, but for Jim Crow and accrued, ongoing systemic racism, oppression, and disadvantage, meaning you will be paid for as long as you're black. And not just black, but freedman black, if me and Kash have anything to say about it. And it will be multi-generational. So scared money don't make money, Kash. I'm not starting. My reparations is not for bargain basement. This is not the clearance rack. It took 500 years to drive us into the anchor, to legislate us into the anchor of this country's capitalism. Our ancestors were killed, and it was stolen from them to create an over $100 trillion egregious racial wealth gap. So is it my monkey or my circus? Cash, is it yours that the number is so high? The debt is the debt. And we're not done adding. And this is why a study is necessary. We got to get the calculator out. We got more stuff to add to the 6.2 quadrillion. And when we've exhausted all the numbers, we can come to the table. But we're not coming to the table with no $12 trillion to get $1,000 a piece for reparations in the end. If it took you 500 years to legislate us into the anchor of the capitalism that our ancestors' heinous chattel slavery was a seed of, it's going to take you at least that long to repair us. So I want all the ones who want to come up off the clearance rack to stand on, get comfortable saying quadrillions. I don't even know what come after quadrillion, but I'm sure we're going to hit even that. And if the white folks were so concerned about how high the number is, they should have left our 40 acres and a mule alone. They should have left our Black Wall Streets alone. They should have left our millions of acres that we were gifted through the Constitution for having won the Union War. They should have left that alone instead of killing us, lynching us, and then giving it to white folks. They gave reparations to our white slave owners and our repair to white immigrants. There was a time when they flooded the country with them. That's why they outnumber us. Okay. They should not have given it to them 100 years of a Homestead Act. They've had a 500-year head start. And we mean to go for the biggest number all the way down to the penny. So let me take a breath. Cash, could you please? Okay, so I first heard you at the task force. Could you please tell the people how you came up with the genius? Now, we know Elon Musk is worth $1 bazillion. How did he get that? Off of heinous chattel slavery. He descends from slave owners. We know that there was a brother that just recently won 137 million. That's a drop in a bucket for Elon Musk of Tesla because of discrimination. So this is what these Mickey Fickies think they're going to get over. You think you're going to use us as a seed for the huge return on the investment that makes you the wealthiest country in all the world and not make us hold down to the penny? Oh, you've got us confused because we're coming for everything down to the penny. So Elon Musk get rich and wealthy off of chattel slavery. Slavery by and large. I don't know who his people are, but I know he had a huge head start. So I want you to please share with the people, how did you come? I understand how you got to this fight, and I'm grateful. God knew who to send. But how did you coin this phrase, 40 acres in a Tesla? Tell me about its derivatives. I'm going to mute so I don't hear no feedback.
Thank you. Thank you. Amazing intro. First, I'd like to rewind a little bit just to the negotiation conversation. I've been in a Zoom with Dr. Darity, who first of all mentions that he was a part of that study for the 6.2 where the 6.2 quadrillion figure was mentioned. So we're not saying someone different than Dr. Darity. He's a part of that study. He's mentioned that there's a study since then that's actually 22 quadrillion. All right, $22 quadrillion. So it ain't just 6.2. That might have been the accrued disadvantages since, but I have to read into the study. I just wanted to mention that. The 6.2 quadrillion is based on unskilled labor wage, which is the minimum wage at the time. And we were not the unskilled laborers of America. Quite the opposite, right? We were the artisans, craftsmen, architects, inventors, so on and so forth, right? Drew the blueprints. To To be very clear, I saw a YouTube video by a guy who works at the National Archive. He spoke about the Freedmen's Bureau and about how we wrote down the records of our own marriage licenses, our own family records, who our children were, our spouses, our elders, and also our health records, our medical records ourselves. How did you end up with the lashes? How'd you lose your hand? He mentioned that one of the Freedmen's records he read, that normally enslaved folks were appraised at about $300 to $400. We know that from the ADO West 101 website. He said that there were some people appraised at $15,000 in that time's money. So we were not the unskilled laborers. So 6.2 is a low ball as well. I just want to mention that. And that's only for 89 years. From 1776 to 1860. So there is money left on the table. That 6% interest rate, I'm not letting that go, since precedent has been set, since we've survived it, and since there's pain and suffering, and since there's late fees. It ain't no statute of limitations. It's the opposite. It's late fees. So they got us messed up for that. I just wanted to drop that in there. 151 million per Black American. I ain't dropping that. I definitely see that when I look in the mirror. So to the 40 acres and a Tesla. I had so many conversations with people who are against reparations, as well as those who support it, but don't necessarily think about our land as a part of the conversation. I tried to find a way to tie both those things together. People who say that we're going to spend our money overseas, which I think is erroneous. It's going to be way more made in USA after we receive reparations. That's been proven as we reinvest in America, especially since we're considered the consumer class of America. So there's no argument there. And if Versace thinks we're going to spend the check, they should be behind reparations more than anyone, since it's going to help their bottom line. Right. But I'm not going to make no hashtag to support Versace or Mercedes-Benz or nobody outside of America. But looking towards Elon Musk and towards it being considered an American business, I saw a way to tie those together. And I thought that California was the perfect place to spark that imagination and to tie, like I said, land back into the conversation. So it wasn't us spending our money overseas. It was investing in an American business, quote unquote. And it wasn't a conversation just about our money, but our land being a part of the conversation, and an update to the mule. So let me speak about the mule real quick. I said it on the Be the Power podcast, but I can't stress this enough. An acre is a made up thing. It was made up as far as how much a man can plow land in a single day using an ox, not a mule. Why was a mule offered to us? Because at the end of the Civil War, there were hella mules left over because they're used in war as a four-legged Jeep, essentially. They're meant to transport goods across the nation. It was weapons, it was food, so on and so forth, right? So I just want to start by understanding what an acre is and what it ain't, and that difference between a mule and an ox, right? In modern day, and I have 3 points for 40 acres and how it can help us with industry, and I got 3 points for the Tesla and how it can help us with industry. But why I mentioned it in the California Reparations Task Force is because in California, they know that there's a Fremont plant. They know a Silicon Valley. I was trying to tie it to someone who's influential right now. Let's not talk about crypto and Dogecoin, and let's not be talking about him trying to go to Mars, right? But let us talk about, is a mule enough in modern day, or do we need to update? Is it 40 acres in a Ford F-150? Is it 40 acres in an electric vehicle? Because Gavin Newsom says by 2035, anyone driving around in a gasoline car is going to get taxed. I said it in the California Task Force. It was quoted in the journalistic article afterwards, right? How do we put our people in the future? Let me speak about the 40 acres first. Then I'll speak about the Tesla concept. Just three ideas. And this is from having conversations with people as well who say yes and instead of that doesn't make sense, right? The 40 acres just in California, but we can speak about the whole nation because I researched how much federal land is owned in each state, percentage wise and raw acreage. And I can argue that we can get 40 acres in multiple states today per person as an update, not no per family of 3 or 4, something like that. It's per person. The price has gone up. Now, what can you do with 40 acres of land? And I'm no, agricultural biologist and nothing like that, but hemp is $1 billion crop. That's the first of all. So if I grow hemp on my land and have 5 kids, that can be 5 different businesses. They can make backpacks from it. They can get contracts with the government as we once did for rope for the military. You can make soaps and stuff from it. I'm not going to belabor the issue of hemp, but it's well understood, right? Hempcrete, concrete replacement. Vertical farming is something else we can do with our land. Vertical farms means that you can build up instead of building out and use way more of your space. This is a new concept that's come out, and I'm learning from agricultural engineers because I'm not one myself. But imagine parking garages that circle and go up, right? You grow fruits and vegetables on all this vertical real estate, and as waters these plants, it trickles down, and some of them can be soilless. All right. And because they're vertical, the trickle down, it ends up saving water and ends up being passive energy. so on and so forth. So vertical farms you can use in your land, hemp you can use in your land, and solar panels. We can lease out our space itself to the government, build solar panels on it, and now we're providing energy to nearby cities as well as to ourselves and being self-sustaining. Those solar panels will last about 10 to 20 years, and we would repair them probably with robots or something, a whole other conversation. But solar panels, in a way, us controlling that industry would make us the melanin of America. Literally. And I think that would be poetic justice. It's something I've often said as far as a phrasing, just to get our minds around it. Especially if we do it in mass, obviously, right? So those are the 3 points just for the 40 acres being power for the next generation. That's food with the vertical farms. That's hemp, which is $1 billion crop. And that's solar panels. Now from there, and us being the melanin of America for the next generation. That's also going to be tying us to Tesla inadvertently, because they're using solar panels for their supercharger stations, which is the next gasoline of America, by the way, and of the world. And that ties me into the Tesla part. So yeah, I am a millennial, you know what I'm saying? And like, when I think about like driving around at all, like I feel like it's hypocritical to the next generation for us to be riding in gasoline cars when we see what's happening to the planet. Like, what are we talking about? You know what I'm saying? In modern day, what are we talking about? So like, it's cool to be like, oh, I want a Cadillac or something. I want, you know, some with 8-cylinder. I want a Ferrari or Maserati. That's cool, but that's materialism to me, and that's disrespectful to our children. In a way, I feel like every time I spend $1, I'm spending my children's money. You know, so that's how I kind of feel about it. So Tesla, he said it's as simple as sweet. Like, gasoline doesn't make any sense. Electric vehicles are the future. He's getting subsidies from the government on it. So I'm saying that he's already getting our money back. He might as well be working for us. It's mechanized labor at his factory, right? So I'm like, look, 3 different ideas here. First of all, there's something called a Cybertruck. He just said that he's created this truck that can pull 14,000 pounds. It's a truck, 4-seater as well, 5-seater, I think, all electric. That's living in the future. Already 1 million people, 1.2 million. I looked at the update. 1.2 million people have done a pre-order for that Cybertruck at $100 per person. So he has $100 million. He's sitting there with a piggy bank. He already has the California factory, and he's building another one in Texas and Austin, which is going to be up by 2023, which is when California has to submit its proposals for reparations. So I'm looking at these timelines and seeing if there's some synergy there. The Cybertruck, it's bulletproof. It's going to be built with the same cold pressed stainless steel that he uses for his SpaceX company, the rockets he's planning to go to Mars with in his lifetime with. And that stainless steel, like I said, is bulletproof, rust proof. If you want to be out creating your own land and your own acres and naming your own roads, you want to be in something that's rust proof for sure. And you can still get it painted. So that's one example as an update to the mule, not just the sedan for people that's, you know, thinking very simplistically. The Cybertruck's an example to that as an update. The 18-wheeler. He's coming out with an 18-wheeler truck. So many Black Americans are talking about trucking being automated and us losing our jobs, as well as investing in trucks so that we actually control the means of production, or at least can control the product that's being controlled in that industry, right? If we disproportionately receive 18-wheelers as a part of our 40 acres and a Tesla claim, as an update to the mule, we would control the industry of transporting goods across America for the next generation. It'd be 38 to 40 million of us. That means every time Trader Joe's wants to transition goods, they rent out our truck. Every time Walmart, Target, Whole Foods, and even Amazon. And I mentioned Amazon because I have to mention Jeff Bezos, right? Who has a space program, and he's the richest person on the planet as well. And he's trying to compete with Elon, which is a whole other conversation. But he said that by 2040, they're going to be net zero carbon emissions for all their goods transitioned across America. So that either means he's going to give a contract to a company that's going to have all these trucks, or he's going to be working with people who already own them. And that means contracts for Black Americans disproportionately. So that's the 18-wheelers and us controlling industry and tying ourselves to Jeff Bezos. And then lastly, I'll say the Gigapress. As far as other companies who can even fulfill a claim for all of us Black Americans within 5 years, because I'm talking about in my lifetime getting my mule update. I'm not talking about it down the road thing. Can this actually be produced? Right? I've looked it up, and there's something called the Gigapress, which is essentially a robot that he owns as a patent, Elon Musk, where it can build the whole back and front of a car in just one sitting. The whole back of a car and the whole front of a car. So he'll be able to produce about 10,000 vehicles in a day in the future, or essentially 1 million per year. If we need 2 million Black Americans to get their mule within 2 years, Elon will be able to fulfill that claim. Okay. Especially because the vehicle he's producing, like I said, is just 2 pieces with a battery pack underneath. And I can also mention supercharger stations, gasoline, and gas stations were the reason that we built a lot of roads to connect America, right? With the interstate highway, the interstate. So now there's going to be new interstates set up based around supercharger stations. We can build them around roads that exist, or those roads can exist based on supercharger stations built on our 40 acres land, where people come to get charged by our solar panels on our land, get taxed by us, right? They patron our corner stores, our convenience stores, stay at our hotels, and we become self-sufficient spots throughout America as people travel throughout America in electric vehicles, including the 18-wheelers. So I mentioned supercharger stations, the Gigapress, the 18-wheelers, and Jeff Bezos and the Cybertruck. All of that was just because I wanted to tie us back to American industry. I can even say one further thing: Black-owned industry. To people who say Elon Musk, he owns a diamond mine in South Africa, we might be able to use this as leverage if he wants to go to Mars in his lifetime. It becomes a conversation. Do you want to close that diamond mine before you receive an order for 38 million? Because Black Americans care about shit like that, and we're willing to bring it up in the conversation. And if that's not enough for people, let's talk about Blesla, a Black-owned Tesla company, and about the government supplying our own Black-owned electric car company. But I'm not going with no gasoline car company. So we can mention Treon, which is Black-owned. The man who owns that supercar company, he used to work at Tesla, and he designed the Model X. He's the designer. All right. So if we want to support him like Master P and his son, Lil Romeo is, we can. But he's creating supercars, which are gasoline guzzlers, which it takes an entire team to build. So he doesn't have the infrastructure to build them en masse yet. He doesn't have the mechanized labor yet for that. And it's 1.5 million per car or something. So I don't know if that's necessarily an update to the Mule compared to the Teslas, which are the fastest cars on the planet, which can't roll over because there's battery packs at their bottom, right? And are like I said, chargeable by the sun. You know what I'm saying? And way cheaper to produce on mass. Let's say this. There's a guy like you mentioned who received that 137 million. Anybody who's researched Elon Musk knows that he only had $100 million as his cut from selling PayPal or X.com at the time. And he used 70 million of it to start SpaceX. He used only 20 million of it to start Tesla. So this man who received discrimination lawsuit for 137 million can start Tesla 5 times over right now if he started his Black-owned car company, but he needs the drive behind him and someone over his shoulder that's willing to look up things like this and keep him on his tippy toes for it. By the way, I'm not sure what his lineage is because his name's Omar Diaz, but to me, and that is important in the conversation if we're talking about, someone Dominican or someone else receiving a wealth that's generational from this claim that's meant for Black Americans with the 40 acres and a mule update. So I do appreciate us having that conversation. I just wanted to mention that. I can't stress enough that there is someone receiving $137 million from Tesla. So he has the ability to do it in modern day if he had that drive. Subsidies from the government can help that to thrive. The same way that your first 200,000 vehicles has a tax write-off and you get a credit from the government. They just increased that to 600,000. So that's going to help Elon. Right? If he increases his production, he gets a tax write-off from the government. These are subsidies, just as Martin Luther King was talking about, subsidies from the government, right? White welfare. So we're trying to put our foot in that same door. We're going to do it through solar panels, through hemp, through vertical farming to be the agricultural head, through, like I said, the 18-wheelers and the supercharger stations. And if we need to, starting our own business and owning it ourselves. I'm sorry for being long-winded, but I hope you appreciate all the points and what they meant to say.
There is no need to apologize. You just dropped so much knowledge. Look at you. Where can they buy the shirt, family? Where can they support and get a shirt? Where can they support you? Listen, our people love getting behind the right voices in this movement. And I would venture to say your voice is spot on. My audience is loving you. Just a few of the comments. Wow. Kia says, just buy land now. Let's get it. Yes. And then they talked about freeways. Maybe you want to speak on that. Kia also says, great thinking. Very forward thinking for us. Now, Tanya Princess says, we'll have everybody wanting to attach to us then. She also mentioned industries we're locked out of now. And she says the states owe us too. Kim, listen, I'm just going to let you have your say because you sound like you got a PhD in finance, the way you just rattled off the solution. I do want to ask you before you respond to Tanya Princess, I want you to share with me, have you emailed this very rich proposal to the task force here in California? Why not? Okay, well, I think they're going to need a copy of that. Maybe what we can do is you can email it to me and I can give it to the chairwoman. No, they need ideas. I mean, we are at this table, unakin to what's happening throughout the country, where they're trying to have these conversations, even for our federal repair, without us. And so you see, I'd like to get it to the chairwoman for her to share it with the task force. We're helping them to think outside the box about what our reparations is going to look like. So you have to understand, Mr. Millennial 40 Acre and a Mule Cash Games. You have to understand that, yes, I need a shirt like that in my life. Oh my God. You've got to understand that you can be very instrumental in not what we ultimately get as freedmen here in California, but we are really seeking to have our reparations proposals set the precedent for the nation. So we need your genius. We need it on the paper, just like you said it. And we need to get that in the right hands so that you can go down in history as one of the creative geniuses behind the outcome of the reparations that we are long overdue. Okay, so I want you to address. Oh, go ahead. I think you're okay to speak now. I put my little Ethernet cable inside.
Check.
So if it gets like echoey, I'll mute again. But I think we're okay for now.
Definitely. I want to start with that I'll be calling into the California Task Force in December. And I already had the 2 talking points for that, which was specifically around the land conversation. Because the 40 acres and a Tesla, I feel like, has run its route and people are starting to understand it. I definitely need to write down how unique it's become and how antiquated it is now, right? And how diverse the argument is. It's a lot more than just a sedan, right? But
absolutely.
I maybe I could just use some help in writing the email. But so it'll definitely be me and you. Me and you.
I am here, joined to your hip, to play your secretary, your administrator, bring you your coffee. What do you need? What do you need? You've got a comrade in me because you are on fire and you are on the right track and you've got a beautiful mind. And we need your type of genius in this movement. I'm just so thankful because I thought that we did something with Reset Race before.
Shout out Reset Race.
Were we on Reset Race together at one point? Your name is so familiar to me. Maybe not.
It's a perfect name for reparations, right?
Yes. I was born to talk. So anytime somebody says, Angela, will you come talk? I go talk. So anyway, I want you in this little bit of time we have left, because I got to go to a meeting that I'm late for, but I could not miss the opportunity to sit and learn at your feet. I'm just blessed for our time together. I want you to address Tanya Princess when she says let's start one at a time. She says we'll have everybody wanting to attach to us then. I want to hear from you because I don't want our reparations to become our affirmative action. Have you thought that far into the future? Because this fight will be for the rest of our lives. Once we procure it, we have to put a gate up to make sure no immigrants and no white folks can, like Tanya said, come over and now attach and talk about their old X, Y, and Z because they too, all of a sudden, out of the blue, descend from chattel slavery as freedmen. Have you thought that far into the future about how to keep it in the family?
Yes. Okay. So just to the point of delineation specific, and then we'll stop, right? 2 points there. That's definitely a good argument, and I've thought it over quite often. First is with delineation, I think with the 40 acres and a Tesla claim, it's super obvious that it's only for freedmen, only for Black Americans who are of slave descent, right? So I like to start there because already the conversation is like, oh, well, what's that got to do with us, right? It's not about police and how they see us. You know what I'm saying? It's about what was promised and what was denied to us, right? Reparations often it's wishy-washy. People go back and forth with, we need to fix white America and teach them how not to be racist against all peoples, right? And I'm not with that. To me, it's the money that's owed for the unpaid wages. It's the inheritance I was denied as well as my land. So, and the Tesla, right? So I wanted to start with that. The land already is a delineation conversation for me, right? It already removes people from the convo who weren't promised that land. As well, there's AB 105 in California, which we've had multiple conversations about, right? Because although it does say that when any California agency by 2022, when it collects data that has to do with demographics, it has to separate Black into two categories. One is American slave descendants Black category, and one is all other Blacks, like Caribbean Blacks, continental Blacks. That's important for us in the conversation about delineation. So I appreciate that about AB 105. But at the same time, it says it has to be a volunteer position by 2022. So it ain't even paid. And it says one person has to be on the board from an underrepresented community. And underrepresented is wishy-washy, as the Democrats often do with us in intersectionality. So now underrepresented could just mean, are you self-identifying as gay, homosexual, or bi or transgender? Are you self-identifying as mentally or physically disabled? Are you identifying as Black, African American, Pacific Islander, all these different peoples who some of them weren't even enslaved? So we're competing to finally get recognition on California boards in a volunteer position, and we're competing with peoples who just got here and some who move here in order to receive benefits we're fighting for. It's opportunistic and counterintuitive. So I don't appreciate those peoples, and that's where we have the arguments about delineations in policy, right? So that's why I had to mention AB 105. We should not be competing with people who just got here after 400 years. We should be hiring them and maybe arguing on their behalf for their reparations in their respective countries, but not necessarily that America owes them when they already are receiving government aid and have to speak to corruption in their own nations. I'm not going to go into it. I also mentioned that in Chicago, and this is going to tie into the reparations conversation real quick. In Chicago, just north of Chicago, Evanston, because they're paying reparations, I put it in quotations, Chicago as a whole is now speaking about reparations. And now there's article after article in the Chicago Sun-Times saying UBI sparks off emotional debate about reparations because Black folks are saying we're owed the money for the work already done. And now there are people saying, well, let's pay everybody. Let's even pay people who just got here. Let's pay people who are impoverished, who've been victims of housing policies of mass incarceration. That is a separate issue. Right. And people need to fight for their own specific issues and not expect Black folks to hold their hand on everything, honestly, because we have 400 years we've been fighting for and specificities at the forefront of the conversation. And people can't shake us from that because that's been to our downfall with intersectionality. I can't stress enough. I mentioned it with affirmative action, mentioned it with AB 105. We're not playing that game anymore. We're not trying to pay everybody off of America's debt. It's specificity and conservatism in a lot of ways to finally fix the injustice before we start paying for other things. Let me mention Evanston, Illinois, since it came up in the conversation. I'll swing that around to Oregon and then go down to California. Right? Evanston, Illinois is paying reparations, but they say it's for redlining. That's not for unpaid wages, and that's not our land. I got a problem with that. They begin by a survey where we have to be choosing either or. Is your reparations housing or healthcare or education? We're not doing that with reparations. And that's why I called into the California task force, because I heard somebody say survey. It's not no either or, it's yes and. It's yes and. So let me just mention that real quick. And the fact that they're using marijuana tax to pay that reparations claim, only $10 million, I see them. All right. And I think it's poetic in a way for us to use the green rush. But in a lot of ways, 100% of that tax money should go to Black Americans for the reparations claim. And then should just be lifetime dividends because we're the ones that made it popping worldwide and in America. We can prove that with the disproportionate arrest in jail for possession. But I ain't going to get into that right now. I'm just going to say I'm going to look at how they're not making excuses for the federal justice claim, and they're paying it out citywide, and there's still statewide claim as well, as was mentioned earlier, as well as institutions that owe us reparations and corporations who I might be a controlling interest owner in perpetuity in the future once I get my initial claim and research further. But let me just mention Oregon. Oregon is offering lifetime payments with Senate Bill 619, $123,000 a year for life. All right, for life. So that's way better than some states are offering at all. Evanston included with its $25,000 stipends, which ain't even a down payment on houses out there, which are $400,000 minimum. So Oregon, but they're not offering land. So I noticed that, and I have a problem with that. Oregon is offering, like I said, lifetime payments and tax exemption for those payments, which is a no-brainer to me. It's the last sentence of Senate Bill 619. It says you can't be taxed by city, county, or municipal. That makes no sense. It's our inheritance denied. Matter of fact, it should have accrued in value if it had been sitting in the bank, right? So they can't tax our stuff. And some people are saying it should be Black-owned banks that receive that check for us to hold in our banks. I mean, we can mention Greenwood Bank, but it's digital right now. Oregon is the reason I called into the California task force. California, looking at Evanston and looking at Oregon, I told them it needs to be yes and. We want an 850 credit score reset for all Black Americans. Back to reset. That's first of all. We want our 40 acres and a Tesla per person, or whatever the update is in modern day. Put them robots to work. I don't care who needs to do it. We want it within less than 5 years. And I researched how much land is owned by the federal government in California. It's 45 million acres. If we did 40 million acres per Black American, which is 2 million, I didn't do the 2.9 because that's Black/African American. We ain't playing that game. 2 million Black Americans would receive this justice claim within 2 years if Elon stopped production for anyone who has paid for their car. So it might take about 5 years for it. And by 2023, he'll have increased production. So there's no excuses there. But if Ford wants to try to fulfill the claim, let's let them fight to the death and see who's going to produce our mule first. And I've looked it up again. 2 million of us, if we got 40 million acres each, that would be 80 million acres. The federal government in California only has 45 million. So they ain't got enough to fulfill our acre claim per person. But if it was 22.5 million acres per Black American, that would be all the federal land in California today. That would fix homelessness today. All right. And that 22.5 million acres, if you marry a Black person, Black man, Black woman, that would be 44 acres and you would get your 40 acres claim. So I'm with Black people getting married and putting their acres together. If you want your 40 acres, marry a Black person. All right. Now, let me say this. California, I looked at Evanston. They set a precedent with the green rush. They set a precedent looking at, they have $580 million from taxes from the green rush. Oregon has $130 million. Let's look at Oregon, $130 million, and they offered us $100,000 a year for life. All right. Now, California, just to be proportionate, just to be fair, $800 million they generated in 2020 from marijuana taxes. So I think they should offer a cool $800 to $1 million per person in California for life. $1 million a year for life. And they can afford that just looking towards the green rush and just with the precedent set by Evanston and looking at the proportion Oregon set. All right. So they don't got no excuses. I want $1 million a year for life.
Come on.
Right? Now that's separate from my land. That's why I said 40 acres in a Tesla. And that's separate from my 850 credit score reset. That's separate from protected class status. The N-word is a hate crime. And lynching should be federally investigated, not by police, local police, who we believe are the ones actually committing these violent offenses. Protected class status. So I can't stress enough that if people want to talk about the Tesla being a Black-owned business, we can have that conversation. There's people who have access to that amounts of wealth. The government can fund that bill anyway and prop us up, and we can have an electric car company competing with Tesla in the modern day with Black-owned everything. I'm with that. It don't got to be Elon, but I can tell you if Elon is the one, he definitely is the one who can do it because he has the gigapress, he has the factories and the manufacturing and the robots, and he's opening a factory in Texas as well. He can get us the Cybertruck, the 18-wheeler, what so have you, and we could be living in a way different future by the next generation. within 5 years with the check, with the land, with the, like I said, the Tesla, the solar panels, and live in autonomy. Can't stress enough. So that's my whole spiel on it. And thank you
I
for
love
having me,
it.
Angela. I love you and love your energy.
I
For real, for
love
real.
you too, my brother. You just, oh my God, my brother from another mother. Okay, I can't rush this. I just gotta keep going. Listen. I'll get over to the meeting. They probably gonna go all night. Elon Musk. I wanted to tell you accurately that his net worth is 292.6 billion with a B. Okay. He's from Pretoria, South Africa. He's according to this, he was born June 28, 1971. He's only 50 with all of this wealth. And he went to the University of Pennsylvania. Let's see here. University of Pretoria. I'm just basically wanting to give you a little background, I do have to look up that Omar Diaz.
Oh no, people mention that to be specific. First of all, like I don't respect calling him African at all. And the white folks over there, man, that's a whole other conversation. So I like to start there by saying the Boers and all them, and they can have a conversation with me, but I don't respect them as African peoples. We're not going to do that. There's even been studies that says that Elon Musk is the richest African American in history. That's ridiculous to me. The fact that his family might own a diamond mine, them diamond mines are a disrespect. He needs to give that up immediately. He doesn't need that wealth. And I don't think that he needed it back when he had SpaceX and all that either, but it might be a different conversation. But if he's not willing to close it, I don't know if I'm willing to break bread or shake hands. But depends on how Pan-Africanist Black Americans want to be, because it's an American company nonetheless. And we're owed our claim nonetheless. Let me say this. Elon is quoted in a video where he was asked, why did you leave South Africa at 17 years old? He said it's because it's mandatory to serve in the military at the time he was growing up there. And he didn't think it was a good use of his time to be suppressing Black people on the continent. Now, whether that's true or not, whether he came up with that afterwards is up to him, that's in his soul. But we can at least say that he didn't serve in the military out there. He left at 17. In my understanding, he got denied American citizenship. So he went up to Canada and rode a bus across Canada. He said it was the most beautiful thing that happened in his life. I still hope to do that myself. And then he came down into California, met somebody rich and started a business and they sold it for, a profit. And then he used that, like I said, to start Solar City, to start SpaceX, and to start Tesla. So I'm not saying he's a role model. I'm just saying that I can definitely see what he did. I can say that there's 10 times as many Black folks that can be just like Elon. Nikola Tesla is the real person to uplift, and he was an American citizen as well. Over 300 patents, so on and so forth. And that's someone who I look up to. So I like that the car company's called Tesla. Simple and sweet. But if it ain't Omar Diaz, it can be any Black American, because the government can back it and can see it through to the next generation. America's too big to fail, and some industries can be as well. And Black Americans are a part of America. So if it ain't Elon, it should be somebody else, but it's definitely owed to us regardless. I just was thinking about how to get it as soon as possible and to make it sound sexy. So that's where we ended up with the 2 million Black Americans in California getting it. And I called into Boston at first, like, oh well, Boston, they're not gonna need the Tesla as much, and the factory's far from them. They're not gonna go with it, but they definitely felt it. And I even was able to make a joke, because Boston's known for its horribly gridded streets. At least in its old town, its financial district, because those cities were built before the cars existed. And so it was based off of cow pastures. And so people often make fun of people saying they can't drive from Boston, but it's really because the roads are messed up. But if Black Americans living in the future with their self-driving cars with 40 acres and a Tesla, instead of the mass and caste and all these videos about how they're getting rid of Black folks in mass living in squalor in Boston right now, and we've all often mentioned living on $8 net wealth, but instead of us living homeless, we could have self-driving cars and not be crashing driving in Boston. I made that joke, and they kind of liked it. Real quick, I see Kia in the chat as well, mentioning Ford. I was looking up Ford's production, and they produce 1.7 million cars. I got to shout out my father, who's in Chicago, that works at the Ford plant. So they technically can achieve a federal justice claim for us if it was an update to the 40 acres and a mule. But their electric vehicle, the F-150 at least, needs microchips in order to be produced. So they're behind on production right now because they don't produce microchips. They have to buy them from Taiwan. And electric vehicles are starting to become a popular thing all over the world. There's still only 2% of the majority of cars being sold worldwide. But I say that to say, that Elon Musk is producing his microchips in-house. So that's not an issue for him, while it is an issue for Ford. And so we would be waiting for them to get microchips while Elon's shoving his out the door. But if someone does want an F-150, I'm completely open to it being check boxes. I want my 850 credit score reset. I want the 40 acres, 20 acres here, 20 acres there, if you want to do it like that, and a Tesla or its equivalent. Ford F-150, EV, and maybe if it's just a 10,000 black folks ask for the EV, we'll be able to get it. Let's have it be a yes and instead of an either or, because I'm not trying to give Elon the biggest check possible. If people don't want to support him, they shouldn't have to, and I ain't forcing my black folks to do nothing.
I like the black-owned company and the Blesla. Okay, I love the Blesla. That is fire. Okay, so let's see. Tanya has a lot to say. God, I may have to have you back. They've been going in. I love all the participation. Hi, Dorothy from Chicago. What's up, sis? I see you. Okay, so I did want to talk. Okay, how do we protect our interests? I wanted to hear from your genius about once we procure all of these amazing outlets of repair, in addition to cash, how do we protect it? How do we make sure they don't do with our repair what they've done with our affirmative action? Any ideas?
Yeah, I mentioned earlier maybe that we would have a black bank for our direct cash payments for one. That way, at least there's less of an opportunity for us to be governed by our oppressors financially, and obviously tax exemption. With the 40 acres claim, I like bringing up that we should have a black code that the 40 acres can't be sold to anyone but black Americans, because Chinese people and other people are trying to buy up land, and that ends up undermining us ultimately. And wealth, acre is always an acre. If we do want to sell our land because we're not interested in being agrarian or don't see the value in it, it can only be sold to the Freedmen's Bureau, which would be reinstated, and it would allocate that land to someone who would put it to good use, who wants 160 acres to 500, as was allocated in the Freedmen's in the Homestead Act to white folks, right? So sold only to us. That's a way we can keep it in the family. I already said with the 22 acres, for those who interracial or whatever, that's on them. I ain't gonna say you can or can't, but to get 40 acres in California, you would have to marry someone of the black community. I'm saying very simply that marriage is an economic decision as well as a political one. And very, facetiously and simply put, what do I look like marrying somebody ain't receiving a lifetime check inheritance? You know what I'm saying? So I will be marrying a black woman and leaving that money in the family.
Yes, leaving the money in the family.
Other than that, I don't know. Like I can't really speak to, because some black folks are interested in repatriating to the continent, and I'm not really interested in that. I'd rather fix Flint, Michigan, and invest in Mississippi, or move in mass to Iowa and disproportionately affect the Democratic primaries with who ends up becoming president. And then we're playing politics, right? Or move to Oregon and make it a new black haven, a new black Wall Street, since it might be one of the first people to be receiving the direct cash payments, even before California in 2023. I don't know, like, how do we keep it in the family? Protected class status, as I mentioned before, tax exemption.
But see,
that's kind of all I got.
We were a protected class, and then they lynched us, and then they burned down our Wall Streets, and I guess I'm still going to have to meditate on how do we stay. Like, it needs to be a crime. Like, it needs to be enforced, right?
There's one other thing. One other thing for reparations is, I once thought it was just going to be a check and done. Now I see it as lifetime. You mentioned multi-generational, and I've even heard perpetuity mentioned in St. Paul, Minnesota. I can shout out moremayors.org in perpetuity, as long as your last name's your last name. All right. So that's one thing just to keep in mind. As well, with the 6.2 quadrillion, we said that's a low figure. When I researched the Holocaust reparations claim, they got 845 million in the state of Israel at first. And then they got 125 million for lifetime payments. So they went back again. So even with our lifetime payments, that don't mean it's over with. We might find ourselves to argue even further points, right? That's how I'm feeling about it. And beyond that, then they went in 1999 and sued in American courts German industries, corporations that had benefited off of their unpaid labor while they were in concentration camps. That was Jewish and non-Jewish people that sued, by the way. They won that claim as well. They sued BMW, Siemens Bank, Volkswagen. We're going to be doing the same thing with our reparations claim. It'll be the direct cash payments federally. It'll be our statewide reparations claim, citywide, universities that owe ancestors from Harvard, from Georgetown, institution. Like I often mention Jack Daniel's whiskey, insurance companies, as I said in the chat, and banking. And I can mention Jack Daniel's whiskeys. I often do. I never buy Jack Daniel's whiskey. I always get another whiskey because the white family that owns Jack Daniel's learned how to distill in general from buying an enslaved man, Uncle Nearest, from a nearby plantation. They learned how to distill in general. He taught them, and he created the recipe they still sell to this day. Their families owed back pay for every bottle sold and controlling interest, 25%, I think, or 33% equity in that business going forward. So if the bottle name changes, they got to go through them. If if the bottle changes, the name changes, they got to go through them. They can sell that interest for a profit, obviously, when it gets sold out or acquired or whatever they call it. So that's true equity to me. It's not just the direct cash payments owed. It's these industries that we're like, I'm looking at an ironing board in my room. That might be, I know for sure it was a black person invented it, but I don't know if it's my own lineage. So I'm going to find that out. So reparations is yes, and I just want to make it clear. We're going to be going for more for our lineage, not just the direct cash payments and just sitting on it, sleeping for it.
That's real talk, fam. My God. Okay, so what do you think about, well, you obviously agree with the states owing us too. Like we have a justice claim on the state level, and of course we've got the federal. There are some people who are opposed. They feel like if we get state repair, it somehow blocks out the federal repair. And I believe it's all in the way you language it, which is why we've got to be at the table helping to craft these proposals and how it's finally framed in the law. Because it's very easy for immigrants and white folks to be in these spaces, co-opting our whole shit, right? Like that is a huge likelihood at the rate in which, I call him Biden, is flooding the country with immigrants to make us the permanent bottom caste. Okay, that because capitalism requires a bottom caste. So could you speak on that, the states and how that's they both owe and why that's not a problem?
For sure. And at first I was in the same boat saying like reparations is the same as liberation to me or true economic inclusion. And so we're not fully free until all of us are free. So Evanston getting reparations and it being tied towards redlining was already confusing in my mind. I was like, that's not reparations. It's supposed to be for unpaid wages for slavery. It's supposed to be for my land, my 40 acres. Why is land not even included? They want us to live back amongst white folks? Like there's no even opportunity for separation there. That's confusing to me. That's not a choice. That's saying you have to be buying housing in the area that we told you couldn't live in. It's kind of backwards. So I'm with the Facebook group that says Evanstonians against racist reparations. They're against that reparations claim. Only 16 families receiving it as well. Right, disrespectful. Right. So that's not reparations. So I definitely agree with people who are like reparations can only be afforded by the federal government since it's modern monetary theory, since it was the federal government that said all these states could have or not have slaves. And the American government is the biggest piggy bank, obviously. Like we can mention California since it's comparable to some countries as a shining beacon up on a hill. for setting a high standard for what reparations could look like, I feel. But ultimately, it's the federal government that owes, and we're not all free, and we're not free until we're all free, right? So I get that. But let me say this. When I was looking at Oregon, when I was looking at how they had already set the precedent for lifetime payments, I was like, because they messed up, now the federal claim has to be lifetime payments. It's actually worked to our advantage. And we don't have to do a Hail Mary pass. We don't got to throw the football all the way down the field to win. We can make small victories. Gay rights was a small victory. Marijuana is looking to be small victories one at a time. And once the states start to show what they want to happen, then federally starts to move in that same tandem. So HB 541 in Georgia, that's the next commission to study reparations. And there's A 3080A, which I think has changed its name to A619 in New York. That's to study reparations in New York. And let me say why it's interesting that these commissions are coming up, because just in New York State, I didn't notice because I'm a resident in New York now, but I was born in Chicago, raised in California and Texas. I live in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn now. In New York, they had a curfew that's a part of their reparations claim, where anyone who was Black or Native who was out in the streets after the torchlights were lit could be beaten and flogged and enslaved. They deserve reparations for that uniquely from the federal justice claim because they survived a unique injustice. Let's mention Oklahoma and Tulsa. Let's mention Rosewood in Florida. Those are unique reparations claims that happened after enslavement, and they're owed reparations for that separate from the federal justice claim. And California, with mass incarceration, with forcing people to fight fires for $1 a day, that needs to be addressed. And that's California specific. And that's a smack to the hand of Kamala Harris, by the way, who's not Black. So
come on.
Now, let me even say the trickle up effect can happen with mayors in respective cities. As I mentioned earlier, moremayors.org, MORE, that's mayors organizing for reparations and equity. There's 11 mayors there, including the mayor of Los Angeles, which ain't the capital of California. I'll be very clear, Mayor Garcetti. But the Sacramento mayor is listed there as well, who is the capital of California. All right. And those mayors, they've said that they support 3 things to be a part of this initiative for MORE. They have to support reparations federally with HR 40. They have to support Black-led organizations consulting them in their pilot programs, which have to do a proof of concept for reparations on their citywide level to show that reparations is going to reinvest in America and help the Black community disproportionately. Doing that, they're trying to step ahead of the curve and be like, look, please start paying and spending the reparations here. Please start paying them out here and please start spending them here. They're white folks trying to jump forward. And when they do that, and when they support federally reparations, that's a yes and strategy. And I'm 100% with that. And some of those cities listed on the moremayors.org, Tallahassee, Oklahoma, the female mayor, the Black woman mayor there, she has 100 people in her city and 66 of them are Black American slave descendant. She can close the racial wealth gap in her city today. Dr. Darity has said some states can close the racial wealth gap today because our populations are so small there. Utah, Oregon, as was mentioned earlier with Senate Bill 619 with the lifetime payments. So we can fix these Black communities today and already start having them live free and have them start using their money to pay legislation or building an armory or whatever they want to do with their check. We need to start doing that. It needs to be yes and. We shouldn't say they can't get their reparations until we get our federal, until we're all free. With freedom, it went state by state as well until the Civil War. And that was essentially a divide and conquer strategy. And we're doing the same in modern day. We're turning the Democrats against the Republicans. Who wants our vote? No reparations, no vote in modern day. Do the Democrats want to be the people who legalize marijuana and have it tied to that tax? Right. And have you start officially addressing this injustice and then get to health care and the other things and then UBI? Or is it going to be the Republicans who only want to pay Americans to reinvest in America while the Democrats trying to help all these immigrants and everybody else? Right. And intersectionality politics and all this, the Republicans see, and they see it as an opt out strategy, which I agree and disagree with. But they're like, look, I don't want to tax everybody in modern America. Let's just tax those who pay into the marijuana industry and use that to pay reparations. If it's going to take that, I'm with it because I'm with getting the check regardless. And like I said, the green rush ain't never going away. So if white folks think it's an opt-out strategy, we'll start with that. But we're coming for our check from the federal government and not even from modern Americans, because to tell the truth, modern Americans can't even afford what's owed to us. These new white folks and the old ones and the Asian community and the Latino community, if we tax them all to the end of their existence, they wouldn't afford what our ancestors built and generated for this nation. That's why they all come here. So it comes from the federal government direct, but these states can start paying it out with their green rush and with these other taxes today. And people are behind that, both the Democrats and Republicans. They need to hurry up and pay, because we're getting anxious, and by 2053, maybe by 2030, because of COVID and Black Americans like me, I'm trying to tell us, yo, reparations is coming, and kids like me, they're like, man, I ain't doing that, bro. People got to stand on this side of the line, and we just gonna go get it in blood. And I'm telling them, slow down. We can reinvest in America. We can create a new generation for ourselves. They need to hurry up, because by 2053, our wealth is set to be at zero, but our population is not. And they better take domestic tranquility as a serious issue, since it's listed in the preamble to the Constitution.
I love that. That's fire. I would venture to say that our wealth is already at zero. I think that 2053 is, a huge stretch. Right now, our median national income is $30,000. The median national home price is close to $400,000. And white folks and immigrants share an over $100 trillion egregious racial wealth gap. 90%, which is predominantly freedmen in this country, 90% of us share less than 700 billion. So this is why I'm opposed to, I don't mind free education, but I am really on Kash, because I've seen how they co-opt all of our programs and make it about immigrants and white folks and LGBTQIA. So I would like to see huge swaths of cash directly deposited into our accounts for us to decide what we want to do with those monies. And like I said on the task force, when Professor Bennett ridiculed that we'll just run out here and spit it on Kentucky Fried Chicken, I let him know you can't have it both ways. We can't both be frivolous with reparations and not have financial literacy, and have grown the race from 4 million post-emancipation to over 40 million by pulling ourselves up by our bootless straps, and not have the literacy to want to do more than go out and buy Kentucky Fried Chicken. It was that argument was dead on arrival for me, and I can't even believe he's a professor teaching people. But that's neither here nor there. I just really believe, let us control our money. I would love for us to go back to sovereignty. I would love for us to get benefits as refugees. These are things that were associated with our plight when we were named freedmen. And so I'm going to wrap it up here, because it's 6:22 and I've kept you so long, but I do pray that you come back and join us with more of your genius and your brilliance. And I am so looking forward to continuing this work with you. I know we've got a big call coming up on Wednesday with the Fix HR 40 edits, and coming up and crafting a response to the Biden administration about wanting to give illegals close to $500,000 per person of our repair, because this is our taxes and our reparations that they constantly tell us they don't have to make us whole, while we, continue to eat private prison, and we're the not so new slaves in there on nonviolent offenses like peddling the very weed they're getting wealthy on. So I thank you so much. Any closing words? Because I got to have you back.
Yeah, I just want to say very quickly, and not to sound kind of sloganish and everything, but for me, reparations is as simple as this: 2053 for why it's of necessity, which is our wealth being at zero. 16T, which is that discrimination against Black Americans has cost the American economy 16 trillion just in the last 20 years, and 151 million for me. The fact that we're starting at that quadrillion figure, which is 151 million per Black American. All right. So understand that money will be reinvested into America, as was said with the 16T. So 2053, 16T, 151 million for me. And just for people to keep up, and I hope to understand that I'm a humble person. I can always be corrected and updated, but I ain't going with lesser numbers. I ain't going with lesser for our people ever in any conversation. That's not going to be the way that I move. That's not who my role models are. That's not who my ancestors were. I'm not here to entertain anybody. I'm here to get what's worth and more. and add tax to that, because that's what we're worth. And just peace and reparations and much love.
How can the family reach you to join your movement? Because you're a movement in and unto yourself, and I love your humility. But we need more millennials to be able to find you, to help you do the heavy lifting on a lot of your genius and your ingenuity, your brilliant ideas about the way we should be repaired in this country. Do you even want to be reached at this stage?
I have a YouTube channel called Hero Hunter. You can just write in one word, The Black Garu. Garu, Garou. That's essentially kind of like a rant page where I talk about certain historical heroes and kind of take them down by updating them with true history, since we've been misinformed by whitewashing. You can call it a CRT breakdown of all these different heroes. Andrew Jackson's coming up. I already did George Washington. I already did Christopher Columbus. Thanksgiving's coming up. And I post little rant videos of reparations on that YouTube channel as well. Again, that's The Black Garu.
Yeah. Is it 3 separate words or all one word?
If you write it all as one word, it comes up super easy.
Okay. The Black Garu, Garou.
Yep.
On YouTube.
As well. Just Googling my name, you'll see a lot of the work I've done, but it's kind of convoluted by all the dance work I've done, dance videos and stuff. So it's better to just message me direct for any feedback, critique on my Instagram page, which is at KASHOFYAK, Cash of Yak. Right. I don't really check Facebook that much too often. And I guess they're moving to a metaverse or whatever. And I don't really check all these other social medias, but Instagram works pretty well. As well, I'm on Clubhouse. You guys can follow the club Millennial Reparationist at least every Monday, except for today. We have a conversation about the 40 acres and a Tesla, and see if there's even better ideas for it, or about if there's industries to control around it, about what you're going to do with your land, and about if land is even a part of the conversation anymore, because people have forgotten. They think it's a check and black folks gonna go spend it on KFC, as you mentioned. I'm a vegetarian, so it irked me a certain type of way as well.
Yeah, that was the nerve.
So yeah, on Instagram.
Can you please spell millennial? For some reason, I'm not spelling it right.
Shit, don't get me lying. MILLIE. Hold on, let me see.
I thought it was MILLENEIAL. Let me try.
I thought there was an E.
MILLEN.
Oh yeah, MILLE Mill, NNIAL.
MILLENI.
2 N's.
Oh.
IAL, yeah.
IAL. Millennial Reparations is your Clubhouse handle?
A reparationist, yeah.
Reparationist. Okay.
Yeah. And that's anyone born from, I think, 1981 until 1995. I was born in 88, the year of the dragon.
Come on now. Well, you are just fire. We're so grateful to have you with us. And I'm looking forward to when you come back and spit some more of this fire to my audience again. Thank you for just being you. Thank you for all you do to help the lineage become repaired in the quadrillions and beyond. We appreciate you. We value you. We value your insight and your input in this very important conversation. And I see your eyes closed, so let me pray us out, because that's just how I do things over here. I want to say, that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever Friedman and its allies are, God truly is, because family, you are the face of God. You are the voice of God. You are the body temple of the Spirit of the living God. Know that I love you black and I love you strong. And stay tuned for the outro. Thank you again, Cash Gaines. It's been a rich, rich experience. God's continued favor over your third eye and everything you envision for yourself and for the lineage. We appreciate you so much. Okay, family, this is it. Let's get this going. Hold on, Cash. See, I don't have an engineer yet. But we gonna get this done, y'all. Yes, I'm so thankful to have each of you here. Thank you so much for being here. God bless you. This was rich.